Welcome to this week's episode of Risa's newsletter. Ever wondered why you see very few Japanese startups in the US? If so, this episode is for you. Today we speak to the founders of Launchstarz, an incredible launchpad founded by Kenny and Satoshi that helps Japanese startups enter the US market. Kenny Lum was previously launching new initiatives at Amazon and Groupon in the Bay and has also founded startups in Japan and the US, one of which was acquired by trendy Japanese subscription box we all know, Boxu. Satoshi Miyagawa started his career at Tokyo Marine Holdings, then upon getting his MBA at Stanford, he founded an edtech startup, eventually landing a partnership with Disney. Kenny and Satoshi are experts in the bridge between the US and Japan, so we unpack some misconceptions about Japanese startups entering the US and also explore things to be bullish about in this niche overlap. I am personally a huge fan of their work, as well as the exciting things that they're working on with Ikuo, so I hope you can all get a sense of their realistic yet optimistic perspective on Japanese startups. Thank you so much again for being here and enjoy. Oh, Kenny and Satoshi, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Risa.
Hey,
It's
Risa.
great to be here, and thanks for having us.
You both have been doing really impactful work, becoming a keystone in the bridge between US and Japan for the venture landscape. But it seems that there are proportionally maybe fewer Japanese startups that really make it over the bridge to the US. You guys are experts in this area, so I'd love to ask, why is this? Why do we see fewer Japanese startups in the US? Is it because they don't aspire to expand overseas, or is it that they're trying, but they kind of struggle to do so?
I feel like there are two big things behind the scene. One is about like a social norm and the pressure, and two is about mindset. Starting from the social pressure, I feel like many Japanese startups tends to start their business in Japan and they raise money in Japan, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's helpful for going global. And two is about mindset. I would say it's not about language itself, but about how you could be more, I would say, hustle to go or eager to go outside, because it's very convenient living in Japan, and there is a good amount or good size of market in Japan alone. So there is no urgency to go global. So I feel those two are the big, from higher level standpoint, two big aspects I've seen so far. How do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, I agree with Satoshi, and I also think from my kind of experience living in Japan, it's also early education. I think it's early education where maybe a lot of younger individuals may have the passion, but with the education system right now and what they need to shoot for to get to one of those big companies and be established first before they try their startup, we want to help change that or be a factor of change where early young entrepreneurs should be stimulated and should give it a shot and not just give up so early.
I agree. I think that relates to the mindset I tried to say as well, because that's a great point, because we had a conversation, interesting conversation.
We have many long conversations.
Yeah. So we tend to hear Japanese are shy. I think you heard about it as well. But we realized Japanese are not shy. Let's say we have a conversation on one-on-one basis. They're not shy. They're happy to talk about many things, like fun things, their personal things, and professional things. But when it comes to a group talk, they tend to be silent. And we thought about it.
Or more guarded.
Guarded?
I would say guarded in a way like I don't want to say anything that would be outside the norm, or someone may judge me about this.
Yeah. So we feel when it comes to like a group talk or discussion, they tend to be more protective, like guarded. And I feel people are afraid of being judged by other people. That is like, I think that relates to your first question. It's kind of not helping Japanese entrepreneurs thinking outside of the box or speaking out loud or even going outside of Japan, because that's not like norm.
I see. I think you put it very fantastically, as in like it's not really like this systematic or kind of structural barrier that's causing them to not expand, but it's kind of very fundamentally cultural, that kind of there's like a dissociation there with the entrepreneur spirit. This kind of like relates to kind of a lead carry-on question to the first one, but one reason that I hear a lot of why Japanese startups don't really make it over to the US is the language barrier, and that Japanese
Mhm.
people can read and write but can't speak it well enough to compete in the international landscape. Is this true?
We talk about this a lot too.
No.
I think we can simultaneously say absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. And
No.
I can let Satoshi talk about first because he actually did that coming to the
States,
US.
yeah, US, doing my own startup, talk to
Mhm.
VCs, went to many pitches. It's not about language, as you can tell. I'm not like native English speaker, but I needed to survive. But that's about like commitment, and I wanted to pursue my passion and dream,
Mhm.
and that's one. And another thing is, when people say, I would say, language, they tends to confuse. Like I said earlier, is it like mental barrier that is draining you back,
Mhm.
digging you back down, not speaking up, or it's a pure language?
Mhm.
I think it's the former.
Mhm.
Because if you have passion and if you want to tell something, there's so many ways to tell people.
Yep.
Because even though I don't speak perfect English, people will get it.
Mhm.
I'm passionate or not.
Or they feel it.
Feel it.
Yeah.
If he's like, be honest or not. Or
Mhm.
is trying to get just money, or he's really trying to help people, etc. So with that said, I would say it's not only purely language issue, but I really think it's about the mental thing.
Yeah,
I see.
agree.
And you did the same from coming from Canada to Japan.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing. I went to Japan when I was 21 years old. I didn't understand any Japanese at all, but living there, I did 2 startups and I had to fumble my way through, practice many times to understand kind of like the process. And once you get into it, you know the words in the industry. So you start to recognize the patterns and you're able to practice it and fine tune it. And we've actually seen that with the startups that we work with. So we've seen over 200 Japanese startups that a lot of them have dreams to come here. And it's not necessarily that the person with the best English has the best passion. And we've seen that. Some people with lower levels of English, they just work 10 times harder or 20 times harder to memorize their pitch, to memorize all the Q&A questions, to reach out to us and all the people that can help them, their mentors, to practice and practice. And I think that's why I don't think language
is the main barrier.
It could be an excuse or something that we could lean on, but I don't think it's the main barrier.
And at the same time, I think, you and I had probably rare experience in our lives that he had his Japanese friend in Canada, because your university was a sister school of Ritsumeikan.
Yep.
He went to UBC, so he had a chance to talk to Japanese people, and I think that interested you to going to Japan.
Yeah.
Even though you had no,
idea
idea
about anything about Japan.
And for me, I spent like 4.5 years in America when I was a kid. So I naturally had a sense of living in America, what it looks like living in America. And I could tell people are saying, even though they speak different languages or they have different cultural background, they're harmless. They're good people are good people. Bad people are bad people. That's it. So I feel those are the things for me currently lacking from Japanese, from like broader perspective, from current Japanese startup scene. I feel they don't have the experience being exposed to those different cultures.
That's true. That's true. And that's why when we started Launchstars, we're like, what can we come up with? Kind of like a mission statement or a catchphrase that whenever we meet startups, like this is what we keep telling them over and over. Embrace the uncomfortable. Embrace the uncomfortable. I did it when I went to Japan. I do it every day when I run a startup. Satoshi did it when he grew up in New York when he was young. And he did it when, he came here to start his company. So I think the more we tell them that, the more natural it feels, because I think the biggest and most uncomfortable thing for them is to pitch in English.
Or just come here.
You're right. Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we're trying to, lower the barriers for them.
In a way, it feels like you both prime these Japanese startups into a mentality first before they enter into the market. It's kind of like letting them know this is probably what's going to happen. This is going to be new. You're going to be uncomfortable. And then you send them out into the market, and then they're more comfortable with facing that reality as well.
I love it. That's
Yes.
exactly what we do. You
Yeah.
summarized it well, and we actually have a couple examples where we do this. And in our
Mhm.
most recent cohort, they will, when they arrive, they have a lot of networking events where they really need to have just 1 minute or 2 minute pitches where they meet lots of people, but they've never practiced that. When we talk with them, they take like 5-10 minutes, and sometimes they're not, like we always say, less is more. They don't get to the point of what they're doing, and they lose kind of that attention from whoever they talk to. So what we like to do is when they first arrive in America, we just put them on the spot, and we're like, one by one, stand up, give me a 1 minute
You have
pitch.
1 minute talk.
There's no time to get nervous. There's no time for preparation.
Yeah.
And from there, we have a baseline.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And from that baseline, they themselves can feel and see and put into action the changes, and they can see the improvement.
This is an excellent segue to my next question, actually, which is a key difference between American VCs and Japanese VCs is the career background of investors. American VCs are often later career and former founders, whereas Japanese VCs are often early career, even fresh grad, or former employees of financial institutions. Given how influential VCs are in shaping startups in an ecosystem, how do you think this trait or this characteristic of Japanese VCs relates to the lack of Japanese startups overseas?
I briefly mentioned earlier, this probably plays a big role in the current Japanese startup ecosystem. Because as I said, as a market, Japan is still big compared to the rest of the world. And, there is a stock market as well, Tokyo Stock Exchange. So many VCs in Japan, once those startups, portfolio companies, go IPO in Japan first to, I would say, how can I say it? Confirm their returns before they go global and take more risks to aim higher. Then they prefer to confirm like 3x, 4x, 5x, whatever, they tell sure return like normal finance industry does. It's a calculated risk. I think that's the biggest difference between US VCs and Japanese VCs. And like you said, I think those the players itself in the VC industry plays a lot of role in this. Because if there are no unicorn founders in the VC market in Japan, nobody can actually support startups or can understand the right ways to take risks as a startup. So currently, I feel the Japanese VC systems are more geared toward the more financial or capitalism. I can say momentum. They prefer to have lower risk, lower return than higher risk and higher return. That's my personal opinion. Of course, this might be wrong, but that's how I feel.
And would you say then that American VCs are more like strategic in their innovations and their investments? Like they look at the technology more than the ROI. Is that kind of the correct understanding of what you're saying?
I think they, of course, look at the ROI, but they also calculate the longer term. Like, even though the risk is huge or higher than, let's say, startup A and B, startup A has lower risk for a return. B has higher risk, higher return. They really calculate it, of course, by assessing the founders, the team, technologies, and the market, etc. And of course, track records. But they, I think, tends to invest into the higher return, meaning willing to take higher risk. The risk appetite is different.
I think also they're able to take the higher risk because what you mentioned earlier is, I think, very in line with what we see is that a lot of the VCs here are very experienced. They've run startups, they're serial entrepreneurs. So they're able to take bigger risks because they're able to give hands-on coaching and support to the startups that they invest in, right? They can be just as passionate as the startup. However, in Japan, it's still, even from me running my first startup in Japan in 2009, I don't think a lot's changed, where they're still very fine, like a financial institute, where they look at it and be like, okay, I'll give you this amount. I'll give you this amount of money. It's not too much, but then I expect ROI in 3 years or this increase in users. Sure, I'll do that. However, what tools or training or mentorship are you giving me when those VCs may have, like you said, younger people in there or people from a financial background? So it's kind of this like loop that keeps going, like financial background, safe, smaller investment, IPO in Japan, that's it. That's the market, right? As opposed to what we're encouraging now is that, why don't you take a look at the biggest market? Look at America. It might be good for you to get your first Series A in America, or let's say your Series B or C, maybe you can get a Series D in America, right? And that's kind of, I think we're at like the tipping point of this. We're starting to see some people change their mind. It could also be the economy or the weak yen, or it could also be like, you know, the younger generations, like, I don't want to work at a big corporation, or I don't want to just stay in Japan. I want to take on that challenge.
But I guess we're not saying that the Japanese VCs are not helping Japanese startup ecosystem. They are, you know, playing a vital roles in Japanese startup scene, because you know, when I graduated from my business school in 2013, I actually looked for a job in the Japanese VC. That was like 11 years
I didn't even know about this. So you're getting like hot off the press information here.
I just remember
I didn't know
11 years ago.
Applied to be a VC.
Yeah. I just remember like all of them, like there are so less players on the market, and it was very, very small. And I clearly remember that time there was no term called startup in Japan. They called them venture kigyo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And now everybody talks about startups, which is great. So I think that's needed. But still, you know, we see the gap between Japanese startup ecosystem and the US startup ecosystem. That's why we want to help those founders with the willingness to come to the States to lower the barrier and increasing the, you know, probability of success. So that's why we want to achieve by Launchstarz.
I see. You've kind of like created so many new threads of questions that I want to ask you guys, but I think one key question that maybe a lot of people actually might want to know more about is, when you're kind of packaging these startups for Japanese and American VCs, what are kind of like key differences in how you should package it and how you should pitch it?
I think you should think or reflect yourself and see what the strengths you can present in front of the US VCs as Japanese or as Japanese startups. Because for me, generally speaking, Japanese are very, you know, hustling, work hard, and as you said, they're good at practicing, and also they have good craftsmanships. So they are good creating, you know, products or services, and their quality is very high. And
I think we're starting to see that globally. Everyone understands Japanese.
Gradually, So that's, I think, one of the very important things that you have to actually pitch to the VCs. Don't assume they understand.
Do you think that Japanese VCs encourage these startups to expand overseas, or is that more a sentiment that usually American VCs have?
We talk about this a lot.
Yeah, a lot. This is a great topic.
This is a good kind of debate topic that we go back and forth on. I think in the past, they don't, because it's about ROI. It's about doing your IPO in the Tokyo Stock Exchange and showing your investors or whoever is involved that this is successful. And I think that is why there's very few Japanese unicorns internationally. However, Japanese people are changing and thinking a little bit broader. And even through our recent visits to Japan, we're starting to see more Japanese VCs that are not just interested in investing in just a domestic Japanese startup, but they're looking to international startups. That's one. And two, that I think it's also changing, is that we're seeing a lot of foreigners in Japan under Japanese programs that are living there, like, you know, understanding Japanese culture, partnering with a Japanese co-founder. And I think that is a great way for us to accelerate Japanese, you know, products, the quality and everything, to get them abroad. And I think with those two working together and the VCs being more and more open, I think that is a great turning point. And two is not only do we work with Japanese startups, whenever we go back to Japan, we meet as many Japanese VCs as possible. And we start to learn from them. We hear their feedback.
And also we give our, what we have seen, like insights to them as well.
Our insights. And we really like it because essentially we're not competing with VCs, but at the same time, they're like, oh, actually, we have 2 or 3 Japanese startups that actually want to go abroad. What do you think about this? And we started to see like this little gap that we can help and support.
And to add that, for the US VCs, I feel in general, they don't have like specific appetite to invest into Japanese startups. They just look at neutral because that's their job. They don't care who you are. That's why I tell earlier that it's important to use the Japanese as your strengths. And it's about like what value you're bringing on the table as a startup founder. Regardless of whatever citizenship you have, you are a startup entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. Your nationality doesn't matter. Where you live doesn't matter. As long as you're good and passionate about it.
Extension question to what you just mentioned would be, what does that look like in practice? What is like leveraging Japanese characteristics or quality look like?
So I think that comes down to you have to prove yourself in the US market by, let's say, showing your track record. You sold your Japanese quality product X amount of, units, or you raised Y amount of money by just setting it in a crowdfunding or whatever. You need to prove yourself by the data.
I think that's something that we've been really stressing on and coaching the Japanese startups. It's all about track record. And it's not just, you pull in a big partner and you put the name. It's not just about the name. It's actually pulling the data to be like, this sold so much better, or this gives us a competitive advantage because this Japanese quality is completely like blows the competition out of the water, and you can't get this in America. And I think with that track record, that will eventually interest the VCs in America too. Because the VCs in America are all about track record, not just the track record of Japan. If you have all the big names, it's you come here, you line up a partner, or you have a great test like business or test shop. That's what they'll look into, and eventually they'll come to you and want to invest in you.
Exactly. In the longer term, I agree.
I see. And when you kind of pitch this reframing to these startups, these Japanese startups, how do they react to this? Are they like, yeah, let's go for the Japanese brand? Or are they like, oh, I want to be a global one and not just Japan? Like, how do they react usually?
I'm not saying that you should use Japan as like one of the strengths, but you should consider, is there anything you can use it as your strength when you pitch the VCs? Because if you're good enough in the US, you don't have to tell who you are, where you're from. You're just a person passionate about what you're doing. That's enough. So, but if only if adding like Japan or Japanese helps you, use it. That could be my advice.
I see. I have like kind of a spicy question to that.
Yeah, please.
But do you think branding yourself as Japanese is an easier way out then?
That's a great question. Depending on what you're doing, if that align with somehow like Japanese culture or who you are, definitely you should use it. Because for me, for example, as a Japanese, I'm adding value to the Launchstarz and Japanese, startups. This is like a very easy way to, use a Japanese as my brand. And for him as well, he lived in Japan for 14 years, and he understands Japanese business etiquette, culture, languages. That's a strength, what we're doing compared to what we're doing. But let's say we're creating home in the States, and we create in Japan. Does that really matter? Like saying we are from Japan? I don't know. You could create it from like Taiwanese based, chips, and manufacture in China and sell it, design in Silicon Beach.
You make a good point. Back in the day, it does matter, because when I lived in Japan a long time ago, before iPhones,
True.
I was the most popular guy coming home every year because I would get the latest Sony whatever phone where you could watch TV, you could like surf the internet, and everyone would be like, oh wow, I wish we had these phones coming from Japan. Like that was the time of innovation. And you know, in the States or Canada, we'd have those Motorola flip phones, and they're like, this is so boring. But Sony, Panasonic, Fujitsu were turning out amazing phones.
Great point. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, it
Yeah.
mattered.
Yeah,
Because that's like that's like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
By the way.
So that's why we're like, where are the Sonys and the Panasonics
Yes, now. Yep.
They should be in the startups.
The TV as well. Like all the electronics we had here in the States 20 years ago were Japanese made.
Everyone would want to pay extra money for
Panasonic, Toshiba, right?
Yeah.
iPhone, pre-Apple.
So when I came back from Japan, they're like, what goodies do you have for me, right? Even like the Sony Discman or the MD players. I'm already dating myself for age, but
MD, wait. MD is a very niche.
I don't think I know half the things you just mentioned.
Oh God.
We're getting older.
I look young, so it's okay.
No, but I think that's an excellent point. But now I'm curious then, like during those times it was like the mobile phones and the mobile games and the cool gadgets you had. But now what is that for Japan? What are the things that you should mention and people will be like, oh, that's so cool, that's so Japan, like?
Wow, that's a good one. I think entertainment.
Entertainment is one for anime, Japanese like culture. I think because of the pandemic now, it's like everyone wants to go to Japan. And I feel like kind of like, well, I was one of the first there. No one really cared when I went there. But now everyone wants to go for like Hanami season. Everyone wants to go experience going to Kyoto and visit a temple. Even when we went last month in Shibuya, it was like 90% tourists and like 10% Japanese.
I was really surprised.
And we were like, this is so different.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the whole feeling of Japanese culture, food, entertainment, right? And it's not so much of the product, but it's more of the experience.
Yeah. So those are it's a trend. So 20 years ago, it was about gadget, like he said. Now I guess it's about experience. I think global market finally realized, oh, Japan has a cool culture. And also gradually globalizing themselves by providing more language accessibilities.
That's a good point too. When I first went there, everything was in Japanese. There wasn't even like Romaji or katakana or anything. It was just Japanese. So I had to figure it out. And I think one of the points was like when the World Cup came and then the Olympics came, slowly everything is coming into English or getting more English. And we were also shocked last year when we went. Even the person in the 7-Eleven convenience store spoke perfect English. And I'm like, why is your English so good? Because I would never imagine that when I was living in Japan. He's like, so many tourists come here and I just practice over and over again. And that's it. You don't need to speak perfect English. You practice your same pitch process and he is able to speak to me. And I was telling Satoshi, wow, Japan's changing.
Yeah.
The young people at the convenience stores are trying their best to speak English. So I'm like, why can't they? Why can't this guy at 7-Eleven make a startup and come out and challenge and come out to America?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you mentioned in your interview with Wall and Case that it's kind of the combination of a lot of things right now that's happening that will really accelerate this like this movement towards innovation and startups and venture landscape as well. So I'd like to move on to the next question, which is you've, met up with a lot of Japanese startups and worked with a lot of, entrepreneurs in Japan, but what are the common characteristics among the Japanese startups or founders that you've worked with that show an eagerness to expand to the US market?
Eagerness. You're not saying, they see successful, the eagerness.
It's like who reaches out to you? Who tells you, I want to go overseas,
I can kick this
off.
off.
Please.
I think it's two different types. One is that they've somehow experienced something abroad, whether they live there or they have a friend or they've done many trips out here. So to them, the barrier is already lower. That's one. And two, which is quite interesting, is that we're starting to see some startups that reach out where they're successful in Japan, maybe Series A and Series B. And they're like, well, I need to think bigger. And I don't want to just IPO in Japan. I want to come out to America. And I think the biggest difference in their personality is they're open to taking the hard feedback and the hard advice. Because when you're a Series A or Series B CEO in Japan, you're like powerful, you're respected. You might be surrounded by a lot of yes people. And not a lot of them will be like, no, I don't think you should do that. But when they come and see us and we're like external, almost like an external board to them, and we tell them the hard things, it kind of, they can take it two ways. They're like, nah, I don't want to do it. That's fine. Or they can be like, okay, I'll try it. And when they try it and they see little bits of improvement, I think that opens up their eyes to be like, oh, I think I can do it because my product is good. I know what I'm doing, but with the little tweaks, I think I have a better chance to come in.
Yeah, that's a good call. And also to add Kenny's two different groups, I feel there's another group that I think it's a trending thing. It's a younger group, like younger 20s, years old, and they're still in the college or right after graduating from the universities. They just come to just explore the market. So that's a different generation, I guess, because they have never experienced the bubble, or they don't know. There have been in like the past like last 30 years period. They're born in that past 30 years, and they are, I would say, more eager to take risks or open their mind to global market. So that's like a similar to the second group that Kenny mentioned.
Yeah, that's a good point because we were impressed recently with some of the startups where when we speak with them and then they finally say, oh, I'm 24, I'm 23. And we're like, oh, wow. Like Japan's changing. Or I didn't finish my last year at whatever Ivy League Japanese college and I dropped out for this company. And that kind of reminded us of the Facebook days, right? Where people or Apple, Steve Jobs, Microsoft, Bill Gates, where people were like, it's okay to do this to create my startup.
Yeah, there was a trend.
That would never be okay when we were in Japan.
Yeah, no.
To be like, I'm
You
gonna
need to
drop,
graduate.
I'm gonna drop out of Tokyo University and do the startup. Your parents would probably kill you. Oh, and your friends would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, those three things. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's not a characteristics, but we see those three different groups of people. It's a big trend. Definitely, it's a big trend.
So it's like kind of this, how acceptable it is to endeavor on this entrepreneurship journey. It's becoming more common, more accepted.
Yes.
I guess that's kind of encouraging these people to do it. But I'm also wondering, what do you think these individuals are chasing in their minds? Because it's not prestige necessarily. What do you think they're like looking for? This might be kind of like a fluffy question, but like as
no, it's a good.
I like that because a lot of the initial one-on-ones we have with them, they can all do their pitch and tell me what they do, but we're like, I want to break it down to a more personal level. I want to know what your intrinsic motivation is. So we'll ask them, what is your passion? Like, what do you do? Because that is an important pitch to VCs in America, right? They hear so many pitches. So I think the people that actually have a need or a personal story, like, oh, I want to help someone because my grandma, this happened, or, oh, the big earthquake in Japan happened and this made me realize this, so I want to do this. And I think those core kind of motivations help them, drives them a lot more.
Yeah. So I think that lowers the external environment barriers, languages or countries or boundaries, I guess. So I think that relates to like commitment as well. So I feel there are two different commitment. One is like you had no other choices. So that's why I need to commit to this business. Sadly, that's true. And other side is like he said, they have like some intrinsic motivation to commit himself or herself into what he or she is doing right now. So those are, I think, common characteristics.
Yep. And then for us, we fall in the passion. So we want to lead by example because when they talk to us, like when we see their product and they're passionate, we're like double the amount of passion to them. And I think that gives them confidence and that gives them like, oh, I want to succeed. I want to try this. Because we'll tell them, oh, we failed so many times with our startups and we have these successes, but we failed so many times, you're going to do the same. That's literally like, embracing the uncomfortable. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I think for Japanese culture, it's always I worry about it. I worry how people see me.
Yeah.
I worry that, oh, I go up there and I fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes a lot of years and time and experience for them to overcome that feeling of, oh my God, I failed. It's over. Like we'll fail so many more times. Yeah.
Definitely. You briefly mentioned this, but you're seeing this trend of like more entrepreneurs instead of just IPOing in Japan. They're starting to think about like additional markets or even M&As. And I think it kind of relates to this overarching sentiment of people not wanting to settle for things. Like they want more, they want to chase for more. And so now I'm curious, like as for you two and your own careers, Satoshi and Kenny, you've both been very successful in your own careers. And, you've kind of made your mark as entrepreneurs as well. Why do you think you individually are not settling? And why do you think you're kind of chasing for more in a way through Launchstars?
Interesting question.
Wow, that's a good question. We talk about this too. Go
Okay,
first.
okay.
Because I might go too long.
I might do. No, it's for me, this is all about education. Or in Japanese, keimon katsudo. It's educational activity for me. This is just a part of my vision. And I want to do more and more. So starting from like entrepreneurs coming to the States, like I said earlier, this is like a Japanese social system issue for me. So we would love to be a part of this ecosystem so that we can encourage people to come to the States, being successful and creating unicorns from Japan. But this has to be sustainable. So not only those entrepreneurs, but also I would love to help like college student, high school student, mid school student, middle school student, elementary school students, like all of them, like this population, because Japanese populations are decreasing, sadly. And that's another issue, by the way. But at least what we can do is to encourage people to expose themselves to more different cultures and different people. In my opinion, personal opinion, that helps a lot to open up your mind.
Because you experienced that.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And I think you did.
Yeah, I experienced it thrown off the deep end in Japan.
And since I have that bigger picture in my mind, I feel like I want to at least being successful by doing Launchstars and then move next once we hit some certain point. And also, sorry, I'm gonna add.
No, go for it.
So, I think you agree with me, but
Okay.
we have been seeing so many trends and opportunities to help Japanese startups, not only from our lens, but also from government. Japanese government are pushing so hard, not only national level, but every local cities are trying hard, and it's very exciting. Just simply, it's very exciting, and to be a part of this ecosystem. And we feel like we are in the edge of the trend, and we feel like we are actually adding value to the society. I think that's my short answer.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give a shorter answer if I can. No. I think I've realized after doing 2 startups in Japan, doing a startup here, and then working for big companies, that my passion always brings me back to startups. Because even when I worked at big companies, I'd be doing, we say like an intrapreneur, I'd be doing a startup or a special project within the company. And I realized that that's one. So my passion is always getting drawn back to startups and starting something new or learning new industries. And this is an amazing way for me to learn over, I don't know, like 30, 40 industries at once. That's one. And two is that I did my first 2 startups in Japan. And Japan, I've lived in Japan probably more of my adult life than here in America. So I want to give back to, all the people that helped me in Japan and all the networks that I've built over the, 14 to 20 to 25 years that I've had connected to Japan. And I feel like with that and with Satoshi's network, we're able to bring together not only startups, but the government projects that are kind of fragmented, like there's city projects, there's Medi projects, there's JETO projects. We're able to and want to bring that together so that we can utilize their funding more efficiently. We want to bring together not just the startups, the VCs, media, everything, so
academic
that
as well.
academic, so that it's one ecosystem where you can turn to whatever industry that you need, because a lot of the networking events just one kind of pocket.
Yeah.
VCs, pitch night. It'll be like government funded program, right? And it's all like separated. So I think the biggest thing that kind of opened our eyes was when we went back for Sushi Tech, and we're like, oh wow, like this is as big as it gets. Everything's done in English. They're trying to make a big push. And we're like, yeah, how can we help out? And we've kind of stumbled upon that. And I want to use my past experience and also Satoshi's past experience. And the thing is, we complement each other, because I went to Japan and he came to America. So it's kind of like a unique combination with years of experience. So how can we leverage that? Yeah, so that's my passion for Launchstars. And I think eventually in the future, we want to go one step further. As you actually, when you reached out, you mentioned that, you know, we're planning to launch that Go Global Catalyst Fund in January. And that's partnered with Ikuo Hiraishi, who actually we hit it off with him instantly, because a lot of the things that we debate about and talk about every day, he's kind of aligned with us. And it was kind of like an instant 10 minutes of, oh yeah, we think so too.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, so that's why we're really excited to partner with him about this fund. And I think even in the future, as we learn and grow bigger, we want to create more funds that can bring together Japanese startups and American startups.
Definitely. I think the last conversation we had together as well, there were so many themes that trailed back to my conversation with Ikuo as well. So
You mentioned that.
So he's the most amazing networker that brings people with the same passion.
True.
Definitely. So I have one last question before the lightning round of fun questions, but you've mentored and repackaged a number of Japanese startups to fit the US market. So from your own opinions, what types of Japanese startups are you guys bullish on when it comes to expanding to the US market?
First is about their commitment. And two is mindset. Mindset meaning open mindset. It doesn't matter the skill level, English level, level of understanding of the US market, doesn't matter. As long as you have, you're a hustler and you're open-minded and humble enough to take any feedback from us or customers or VCs, you're going to be successful. So we love to support those, or I love to support those entrepreneurs. Short answer.
The ones that do their homework. The ones that don't just come here and be like, hey, can you introduce me to AZ16, or can you introduce me to Whole Foods or Sequoia? Do your homework, as in, like, make sure you understand what you want, what your priorities are, what you're pitching, and do the market research. That's your homework where you come. The markets are very different. So a lot of them will be like, hey, Japan, I have this customer base, I'm doing this. Well, have you come to America to check the market? What is your beachhead market? If you want to meet this VC, why do you want to meet this VC? Do they have a track record of investing in your industry? Like, all these things is part of that homework that I think sometimes they forget, where they're like, okay, I got selected for this great program, now hook me up. I'm like, it's still a lot of hard work, and it's you showing the passion and stepping forward, and you will receive. But if you just ask, I think it's very hard for any of the accelerators or anyone to be like, oh yeah, let me introduce you to my connection I know for 20 years, when I don't know or fully believe in your product. You have to sell me first. And I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, that's so true.
And a lot of them now are doing their homework, and it's good. That will help them to be successful here.
Yep. For sure.
I think you guys both make it a point where your program is not like a cookie cutter thing for go-to-market. It's really like tailored and personalized for each startup. And in response, you kind of expect the startups to also put in that same respect and effort towards expanding to the US market as well. So now I'd like to move on to the final lightning round of questions.
Right.
There are three. So number one is, if you were banished from Japan but could take one thing with you, what would it be?
So except for human, I guess.
Except for humans.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, okay.
Because my other passion is food, and I'm a foodie, and I love uni, sea urchin. I would take my lifetime supply of Hokkaido uni to bring back here to fully enjoy because it's not the same when it's flown here or it's frozen or whatever. I just love Hokkaido uni. So I think that for me is like
True.
it's all the senses for me.
Mm.
And very expensive.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I cannot think anything out of food from Japan, so probably the similar, but I would say namatamago, like a raw egg.
Yes.
We love namatamago.
We do. When we go back to Japan, it's the simple things that make us happy. So it's like going to eat like nama tamago
Yeah.
or like gyudon
Gyudon,
or like
those,
all the stuff that we really can't get
here.
in that quality.
Yes, with that price.
Definitely. Oh yeah, that's definitely a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the quality is so high.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just the simplicity of like a bowl of like hot rice and tamago is just
So good.
Tamago kake gohan. Oh.
Namatamago and shoyu, that's it. I'm happy.
And I guess that's the quality of Japan too.
Yes.
There's so many types of shoyu, different types of meals that you're gonna eat.
Definitely. I feel like we need another conversation on like food and
Yes,
because
let's
I'm
do
a
it.
foodie too, so I know where you're
Really?
coming from.
Oh, there's
topic was-
another
Yeah.
connection.
Okay, I'll move on to the second question.
Okay.
What is a book that you'd recommend?
He's passionate about it.
Okay, yeah, I'm as a Japanese and as an entrepreneur, I would like to recommend one comics called Sanctuary. It's a very old comic, but it talks about dream and passion and how reach out to materialize their dreams. So yeah, when you search Sanctuary, there are gonna be so many reviews. So I will definitely recommend it. It's about entrepreneurship and thinking outside of a box.
For mine, this is going to be part of the homework to all the startups that want to come here. I like Ben Horowitz's book, and I've read it many times, is The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And basically, there's no easy answers. There's no cheat codes. Being a CEO is a very lonely place. Him and I have bonded on that. Yeah. And I think that's how we started bonding to come up with Launchstarz. It's like, how do we create an ecosystem where I'm not just reading a book or thinking to myself, oh, how do I do this? Or man, I can't talk about it with my friends because they have no idea. They're not entrepreneurs. I can't talk with my staff because they're going to be worried about the company. Yeah. I can't talk with my partner because they'll be bored out of their mind already because they keep hearing about the startup anyways. So I think that book will help you have the mindset to be like, you know what, when you do a startup and you have a hard day, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to make hard decisions. Making the hard decision may not be the right decision, but you just need to stick with it. And I think that book is great. And the reason I like Ben Horowitz too is he's one of the first VCs in America that have said a couple times, it's even been in newspaper articles, where Japan has this potential of startups, of hidden gems that will be coming out to be unicorns. And I think, that's something to look for in the future.
You're actually the second guest on this podcast who's recommended that book.
Oh,
so yeah,
nice.
now I am very, very convinced that I need to read
So
that.
when
Go ahead.
If that's the case, I would recommend first read the hard thing as well, the hard things, and then read Sanctuary.
Okay.
Because Sanctuary has two shujinko's, right? One is on the politician, one is a mafia, but they have same dream and passion. So they use their power to make that dream materialize and making so many hard decisions.
Okay. So they're like correlating themes with these two books as well.
Yes.
Okay. I'll keep you guys posted on when I read it then. It sounds exciting.
Love to hear your feedback.
So the final question is, what do you do when you need a push of courage?
So a lot of times we're like in our little hole, in our office, super focused, and just can't see the bigger picture. So when we need a push of courage, I take a break. I go take a walk in the park. I go to a museum or like refresh and like clear your mind. And sometimes we do that together. We'll go to the park. The funny story is we started half of our company in a park.
This is a true story.
Yeah. because it was during COVID or we're working at home. There's no office, so we just met at the park halfway between our houses and sat down. And I feel like a lot of startups are like so focused or sitting at their desk every day. So if I need a push of courage, I need to clear my mind and I just go to a different, usually it's like outdoors. And with that, I'm able to be like, okay, this is my decision. I'm gonna stick with it, and that's my push of courage because my mind is clear. I'm not cluttered with everything in here.
Yeah, I agree with Kenny. I think it's clearing up your mind is very important to be very, focused and confident on you and what you're doing. And at the same time, I also, I would say, prepare everything I can do so that I feel I'm ready.
That's a good balance.
Yes.
between us.
So I'm more like,
you
details. I take a look at all the details, make sure I don't miss anything. And as far as I feel it's perfect, I'm good.
It's Japanese quality.
But of course, during those preparation, of course, I get sometimes a bit nervous or worry about what if this happened? What if, right? So if that happens, I take a break, sometimes go to hit up some balls at the golf course, clear my mind, sometimes drink, don't think about those small things and come back to what you're passionate about and then come back to the groundwork. I think this iterative process helps me a lot.
Yeah. And the best part is when we do this, like we complement each other. Because sometimes I'm like, dude, this is too far in the weeds. Let's move this forward. Or sometimes he'll be like, oh, we need to figure this key thing before. And I'm like, oh, okay. And we make a lot of these decisions is if we go clear our mind. We don't make it like sitting here.
No.
Because there's too much like pressure about everything when we're sitting here. So he's like, oh, let's go hit some golf balls. So even when we're hitting golf balls at the driving range or like, we're talking about, but it doesn't feel like we're talking about business. But as we go through that, it's like we both complement each other. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to move faster. And sometimes he's like, oh no, let's pull back. Or sometimes it's the opposite.
I want to go fast. Wait.
That's what we want to share with the startups as well. When's the time to have the courage to move forward fast? And when's the time to like check everything to make sure it's, you're ready.
So to supplement our comments, I guess that's why it's better to have your co-founder when you need courage. Like he said, I think most of the time I'm with him and we spend so much time together, but I think we kind of, naturally perfectionize how we get over those things. Very natural. We didn't talk how to, but it was natural.
That's true. Yeah.
But let's say, if only me or him, probably we took a different approach to address those issues. It might be like the fastest way to move it forward.
Definitely. I think I mentioned this last time when we spoke as well, but when I was doing, background research about Launchstarz and each of your own careers, I really, really felt like Launchstarz and the way that you guys are doing it is only possible because of you two and the chemistry and the synergy that you two bring to the table. So, I mean, I think I can speak on behalf of all our friends that we all really admire and appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we're also lucky and glad to have the opportunity and that we actually started, on a friendship level before going to business. And I know it's easy to say and difficult to do, but I always feel like the friendship helped us secure like a very tight bond to be able to have hard conversations with each other and not end up being like, oh, I'm like pissed off at you.
So always cool. I
think that's important.
I think that wraps up all the questions I have for you guys today. So thank you, Kenny and Satoshi, so much for sharing all your insights about, Japanese startups and the venture landscape. And of course, all the good energy that you both put into amplifying Japanese startups. Just final two quick questions. But the first one is, how do people reach out to you?
You can come to our website. It's launchstarz.com. So LAUNCHSTARZ.com. And I think that's the easiest way.
Website, or you can email us at contact@launchstars.com. And my final plug is follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn. Instagram is just Launchstars. Yep. We like to post all the activities that our startups are doing, and we try our best to share all the latest startups that are coming to America or taking the challenge.
Sounds great. I'll link everything down below. And the final question is, how can the audience be helpful to you?
I would say reach out to us, connect with us if you want to be part of the ecosystem. And I think the more the merrier, because we want to create an ecosystem of not just the industries we mentioned, but people in all industries. Because as startups grow, maybe this startup needs some expertise in an industry. We want to have this ecosystem where everyone feels safe, not judged, and it's easy to talk to someone and know that, hey, we're like connecting because of our shared passion and not because like, oh, it's money first or what am I asking or getting from you. I think that's
I agree. Yeah, please be a part of the ecosystem if you're interested in, and that's it. In any capacity.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kenny and Satoshi, so much again. And that's it for today's podcast. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. Take care.
Bye.